All right, y'all, welcome to the show. As usual, got a lot of stuff to get to today, so in just a second, we have more preposterous things from Trump. I literally don't understand how he's getting away with running as bad of a campaign as he is. I'm shocked he's not down 10 points. So have a Fox and Friends interview where it casually says one of the most unpopular things I've ever heard in my life in terms of a proposal. We have the new ads that the Trump team are leaning into are literally a proven failed strategy from 2022. A lot to say about that. Then we'll get to a really interesting MSNBC segment where Arab American voters truly have a dire warning for Kamala Harris in terms of the direction of her campaign. And then we'll also get to Bill Maher berating his guest for caring about Palestinians and a detailed breakdown of the new plan to steal the election in 2024. There's a great article that was written by Mother Jones, which explains how Republicans are front-loading their rigging effort this time around, because obviously they know Trump is not the president, so he doesn't have his hand directly on the levers of power at the moment, and so they need other clever, creative ways to try to do the most unethical and immoral thing imaginable, which is steal the election. All right, so a lot of stuff to get to. You guys know the drill. Everybody, please do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps massively in the algorithm and costs you nothing at all. And, of course, much love and a massive shout-out to everybody who supports this channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support, that link is below. You could also tip with a thanks button over here as well, or you could support Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. That's link is below as well. Remember, we don't talk to any advertisers, don't take money from any shady-ass billionaires, don't take money from any foreign governments. And funny enough, that might be rare in this new media space, because most of this space is now new corporate media, and we're actually independent media. All right, so without any further ado, let's dive into it. So Trump went on Fox and Friends and gave us this moment. Now, I'm going to play this for you. Then I have to show you just the devastating response, which I think explains perfectly the power imbalance and asymmetry between the way Democrats campaign and the way Republicans campaign. Listen to this.
Anything to do with school choice, also. Okay. But also, separate from school choice, we're going to take the Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it. We'll have one person, could be you if you decide to retire.
Okay, Mr. President, here's what bothers
central casting.
Here's what bothers me about that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money. We would save half of our budget.
Okay.
Shut down the Department of Education. And then when he's pushed by Kilmeade, and Kilmeade says, well, what do you do when you have these schools and they say, we're going to teach that America was built by slaves on top of stolen land? He's like, don't send them any money. Shut down the Department of Education and don't send money to schools that teach facts. Look, I don't know how to get this through to conservatives, but it is true that this country was built on the backs of slaves, right? Like, that's true. Now, you could say, well, the slaves didn't build all of it. Okay, true, but we still had slavery, and they still did a tremendous amount. Like, and the idea that this land was stolen, I mean, that's not... We already get taught that that's the case, because it's true. Well, nobody was here before us. That is not true. We know there were Native Americans here. We know about Manifest Destiny and the Trail of Tears, right? So look, it's so funny because the Republicans always accuse the Democrats of like, you guys are politically correct and you want to teach only your version of history, not the objective version of history. And it's like, those criticisms apply to you. You guys have right-wing political correctness, and you want to teach your version of history, not the objective version of history. Because any objective retelling of history, yes, there's plenty of things that you're going to point to in U.S. history that are not good, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know how anybody could argue against that, but that's the thing. They don't try to argue against it by making a case. They just say stuff like, we're going to defund the schools if they say things that are true. We're going to defund the schools. This point is a devastating point from this Twitter user here, Jillian. She says, I've long wondered why defund the police became politically toxic, but defund the schools is a routine campaign promise for Trump and his ilk, and it usually just slides right by Democratic strategists. That's such a great point. Defund the schools, defund the Department of Education should be like one of the main lines of attack that you use against these Republicans. Because this is, I mean, if you poll this, oh my God, it's going to be like 85% of the country would say, 90% maybe, would say, no, don't defund the schools. Don't defund the Department of Education. And again, the line of attack against this is they are doing right-wing political correctness. They don't want to teach anything that cuts against right-wing orthodoxy. Because we already learned about the Trail of Tears. We already learned about Manifest Destiny. We already learned about Native Americans. We already learned that much of this country was built on the backs of slaves. It's not like some woke left-wing thing to point those things out. It's just a retelling of history and what happened. Jesus Christ, man. It's unbelievable. I also want to give you guys this. So Trump, this is a lot of the money that Republicans have been pumping into this race at this late date. It comes down to ads like this. Let's take a look.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So in 2022, Republicans spent a lot of money on ads that are exactly like this. They really leaned hard into anti-trans stuff in 2022, and it mega flopped. To say it just flopped is an understatement. It mega flopped. Because they're focusing on this as it was very obvious to people, oh, it's because of you guys Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's because of you guys more than half the Republican candidates are election deniers and still refuse to accept the 2020 results. And so at the same time, the view of the right is that you guys are extremist and you're not focusing on kitchen table issues and you're authoritarian. They countered that by trying to make people afraid of trans folks. It didn't work. They underperformed. It was historic just how much they underperformed. Now, the other thing is, of course, those guidelines about, trans people who are in prison having access to gender-affirming care, those guidelines existed all the way back in 2018 when Trump was president. You want to know why? Because if there's a genuine case of gender dysphoria, it is accepted healthcare treatment to try to ameliorate the gender dysphoria and do one version or another of gender-affirming care. It's like basic healthcare for somebody that has a psychological issue, right? That's what it is. And so it was like that under the Republican administration. It was like that under the Democratic administration. This stuff is like, what are we even debating here? But they try, gotcha. And then they do this like, they want the boys to play with the girls. Well, first of all, look, I can say as a stepdad and witnessing these things with my own two eyes, up until a certain age, the boys do play with the girls, right? They have co-ed sports up until a certain age. That's the first point. The second point is some of these red states are banning trans people from participating in certain sports leagues, and then you find out in the whole state there's literally like one trans person, right? So this is like the definition of a moral panic. It is the definition of that. And what they're trying, it's the old playbook, right? It's like, what was it, 2004 when, was 04, 06? I don't remember when it was, but you had Bush and Cheney were sort of leaning into, we want a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. Like, you're just taking cultural issues and trying to deflect and obfuscate and be authoritarian and go after a marginalized community, and you think somehow this is going to land as opposed to like kitchen table issues, right? And so I guess everybody should be thanking the Republicans because now they massively reduced their ad spending on certain issues which were probably hitting better for them. Like, I think they reduced their spending on inflation-related stuff and immigration-related stuff, which I don't agree with them at all on immigration stuff, but the polling shows that their take on that, like, the Republicans get viewed as better on the issue of immigration than the Democrats do, and that's relatively consistent, but they reduced their immigration spending, they reduced their inflation spending, they reduced some other sorts of spending, and they're running with stuff like this. Like, again, it's like they're trying to lose. It is like they're trying to lose. That's what we're witnessing. And he's going around casually in these interviews and saying defund the Department of Education and defund the schools and don't allow them to teach facts about how Native Americans were here first and slaves helped build this country. What a sick, sick joke. What a sick joke. Kamala should be very thankful that she's put in a position where she doesn't even necessarily have to run the best campaign right now, right? Like, she can get away with just being mediocre. She can get away with just being generic Democrat because they are giving themselves enough rope to hang themselves. That's what we're witnessing. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.